If you're someone who never skips a workout, please listen up. We grind away at our training goals 52 weeks a year, never taking a break. Then we wonder why we're mentally burned out, physically beat up, and losing the love for our goals that we once had. What nobody tells you is that slowing down once per year is one of the best ways to make sustainable progress. In this video, you're going to learn the following: why stepping away from your usual program and trying new exercises is genuinely healthy, why having an off season matters just as much for you and me as it does for professional athletes, and the real problems that show up when you never take a break: plateaus, nagging injuries, and a constant sense of fatigue that never fully goes away. Hey guys, my calisthenics training has been getting a little bit stale. Doing the same thing over and over, it eventually takes its toll. The truth is, if you want to get stronger, you've got to stick to the same exercises year after year. Now, as someone that loves calisthenics training, eventually your body's just going to be screaming for something different. So coming into the end of 2025, I'm going to take an off season and I'm going to explain how I'm doing it and, more importantly, why. I've actually been hitting the gym, lifting weights, using machines, doing something completely different and stepping out of my comfort zone. Right now, I'm running an 8-week block that's roughly 80% weight training and 20% calisthenics, the exact opposite of my usual mix. It's quite simple really. I'm still pulling and pushing, I'm just swapping the bodyweight version for the weighted equivalent. A pull-up becomes a lat pull-down, a handstand push-up becomes an overhead press, a push-up is replaced for a bench press, and you guessed it, instead of doing front lever rows or inverted rows, I'm doing some dumbbell rows. I call this hybrid training, where you're mixing calisthenics and weights into one workout so you can become big, strong, and well-rounded. Now, if you want to follow the exact hybrid routine that I've been following, go to Fitness FAQs and get our hybrid program. You're going to fall in love with mixing old school iron with mastering calisthenics. For me, an off season is just as much a mental reset as it is a physical one. When you're training hard 5 days a week all year round with only a few deloads sprinkled in, it eventually wears you down. You accumulate this deep fatigue that doesn't show up as soreness, it shows up as stagnation. Getting in the zone requires a level of focus that eventually drains you. Eventually you're slamming down more and more caffeine just to feel fired up enough. I've heard this from a friend. For those of you watching who genuinely train hard, close to failure, progressive overload, like it's your damn job, you can all relate. I'm not talking to the person who's half-assing it in the gym and being inconsistent. Those people don't need an off-season. They need to just show up and do the damn thing. The reason for all of this variety is because if you've been training consistently, eventually you get to a point where you're getting so strong that it becomes really hard to recover from it. Sometimes the only way to truly restore yourself is to change the exercises entirely. This off-season creates a form of relative rest while still allowing you to do something. But if you're anything like me, we need to be firm but fair with ourselves. Resting doesn't come naturally to people who are highly conscientious and train like savages. But here's some wisdom that I try and follow. It takes even more strength to have the restraint to step back, relax, and actually let your body and mind recover. That's what separates the good from the great. Knowing what you need to actually rest is the difference between burning out and raising the bar decade after decade. Now, this doesn't mean you should rest completely and just be on the couch all day like some kind of sedentary sloth. Complete rest for a few months will absolutely make you lose muscle, strength, and overall fitness. What I'm advocating for here is giving yourself the permission to try different styles of training, not taking things so seriously all the time, just having fun and experimenting for a little bit. A big fear that many of us share is losing our hard-earned gains. We spend years building strength, adding muscle, and trying to reach our potential, so the idea of taking a step back feels threatening. But detraining is much slower than people think, and maintaining your gains requires far less work than building them. There's a common misbelief that if you miss a few workouts or swap your exercises, everything that you've built is going to disappear completely. Guys, as long as if the intensity is there, you're doing at least a handful of sets per muscle group or movement pattern each week, our general strength foundation won't crumble. And here's the most important part most people underestimate: muscle memory is a real thing. It's not just some concept that is invented by a old meathead you see at the gym who's ranting about what they used to be like in their prime. With muscle memory, the principle is it's going to be easier to regain lost performance, and it's going to happen dramatically faster than building it for the first time. If you've ever been injured, you've felt this firsthand. You were forced to temporarily modify your training and you would have felt weaker in the short term. But once you return to normal training with consistency, you bounce back shockingly fast. The same applies to strength and technique. When you come back from an off season, there's going to be this disconnect between your mind and body. You're going to feel a little bit awkward on the exercises that you used to do. But just like riding a bike, the skill of exercise is dormant in your body. All it takes is a handful of workouts and you'll be performing like your old self in no time. With muscle mass, it's even more forgiving from a detraining perspective. It doesn't matter whether you're using body weight, barbell, cables, or machines. It's all resistance training. My advice, please don't fear. You're not going to shrink and wither away with a little bit of variation. In a world that's obsessed with hustle culture, if you're not going hard 24/7, 365 days a year, it can really feel like you're less than. An example of this is when I ask someone, "Hey man, how's your training going?" I've never heard someone say, "Yep, I'm just maintaining," or "I'm taking an off season because I need a rest for a little bit." And yet, all the best in the world understand this principle. Olympic athletes, they structure their training around rest, prep, and peak phases. Why do we act like the rules of physiology don't apply to us? The human body isn't a machine that you can redline forever. If you push it long enough without a break, it's going to force one on you. So far, this off-season experiment has taught me that it's okay to rest without feeling guilty. It's fine to do a period of general training just for the fun of it. It's unrealistic to be at your peak strength all year round. And when you eventually return back to your normal training with familiar exercises, you're going to have this reignited passion to attack it once again. I've been reflecting on why we don't try new things more often, and the identity trap is a big reason. I'm known as the calisthenics guy, and that becomes part of how I see myself and how others see me. That's why taking an off season feels uncomfortable. It's threatening that identity. It had me asking, if I'm not doing calisthenics, who am I as an athlete or a creator? But the beauty of changing your training in the off season is that you get to do it deliberately on your terms before life, fatigue, or injury makes the decision for you. 8 weeks of fresh training reveals things about yourself that you're never going to access by doing the same routine on repeat. This little weightlifting arc that I've been on recently has really highlighted this fact. I'm someone that wants to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I'm really content with that decision. I don't care about being the biggest, the strongest, or the most physically dominant specimen on the planet. I know the level of sacrifice that's required to transform your body at the advanced level. And being the number one athlete has never been my goal. What matters is becoming the best version of myself, defining what success means to me, and pursuing that with intention. I find this helps me enjoy the process of training, not waiting to be happy when I finally hit a personal best. For you and me, training is really about building a body that feels good, moves well, stays healthy, and supports us for life. And sometimes that means stepping back, trying something different, and letting go of the way we've always done things. Doing new forms of movement is important, especially as we get older. In our 30s, we start to slip into routine. We become creatures of habit, and this sense of complacent comfortableness tends to creep in. I'll admit it, I'm guilty of sticking to the same bodyweight exercises over and over because they feel warm and familiar. That's actually one of the main reasons that I wanted to start lifting weights. For me, it's a completely new challenge. It forces me to check my ego, get uncomfortable, and have to go through that awkward stage of lifting lighter weights than I know that I'm mentally capable of. I guess adopting that white belt mentality is something I strive to maintain, regardless of my goals. Because the second you think you're a master and you stop being curious, that's the moment you start to decay. With a yearly off season, one of the biggest benefits is the rapid newbie gains you're going to make. My body is so finely tuned to calisthenics that when I do lift weights, I'm basically a beginner again. And that's a really good thing. I've been hitting PRs every workout because I'm learning new movement patterns, and that fast progress, it feels incredible. It's a refreshing change from something like the pull-up, where it literally takes me a few months to add even 1 kilo. One thing that shocked me about this off-season was how quickly I could fix my weak links. I've always been a compound focus guy, big multi-joint movements, minimal fluff, barely any isolation. But once I committed to some bodybuilding stuff, the difference was immediate. I've been giving my arms more direct volume than ever, real arm days instead of the usual few token sets at the end of an upper body workout. I'm progressing these isolation moves like the main exercises, and hopefully you can see that difference in the arms. Variety is so valuable for addressing those areas of weakness that you're always neglecting from your regular training. When you finally give every part of the upper and lower body some focused work, it's going to plug the gaps in both your physique and overall strength. And the biggest benefit from this off-season period is my body has finally had a break. It physically feels so much better. This variety was exactly what my joints and tendons needed. They were desperately asking for it. By changing the form of resistance, mixing machines, free weights, and calisthenics has been a huge relief from the repetitive stress of doing the same movement over and over. So if you're a training minimalist like I used to be, doing a little bit of bodybuilding, gym bro stuff really goes a long way, especially if you're someone who's in their 30s and 40s. This off-season has shown me that training indefinitely without a break is like strict dieting. You can brute force it for a little bit, but eventually the body wins, man. And moving forward, I'm definitely keeping training variety in my routine year round. It's not going to be optimal. I'm not going to become the best, but that's cool with me. All right, legends, I invite you to watch this video right here if you're interested in mixing calisthenics and weights. I believe it's the future of fitness, and I invite you to join.